Welcome to On the Couch with KWI. Today we're joined by a special guest, Mr. Kevin Dales. Kevin, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here.
Good to be here. So a different type of career than what most people would imagine in welding. You've been in welding for several decades like me. Let's kind of rewind all the way back to the beginning. What made you want to get into welding all those years ago?
I wanted a Volkswagen rail buggy.
Okay.
And I saved up enough money to buy the kit, and my brother, he gave me the donor Volkswagen, and I had this plan that I'd get my dad to weld it for me. But my dad told me no. He said, I said, Dad, will you weld that for me? And he said, no, I won't do that. He said, but I'll show you how to weld.
Okay.
So he spent a little time and taught me how to weld a little bit, And it took me a year, but at the end of a year, I had a Volkswagen rail buggy that I could drive. By him telling me no, that eventually allowed me to support a family and have an income. So that's kind of how I got into welding.
Yeah, and that's a really cool story. A lot of people don't even think about it. If you want something and you don't know how, go for it yourself. So that one decision changed your life.
Changed my life.
So follow that up with education. Did you see some formal training?
Yeah, so what I did, where I had the interest in welding, when I got in high school, I took 2 hours of vocational as a junior and as a senior. And the vocational school was there beside the high school. And so I go 2 hours a day and started through the process there, really enjoyed it. And, it allowed me to, the hobby of welding and make things that I wanted and could use. And then as I graduated high school, I thought, well, I'll finish this up and get my certification. And so that's what I did, was finish the welding program at that time is Round State Vocational Technical School.
Okay.
And so I finished that up at that time.
All right. So while you were there, I understand that you were a competitor, and back then, instead of Skills USA, the program was called VICA, Vocational Industrial Clubs of America. Now, did you fare pretty well in that organization?
Yeah, I won state competition.
Okay.
Yep.
So going to the state contest is a unique opportunity in all aspects. It takes a lot of work, a lot of practice, a lot of dedication to get there.
Yeah.
And all those things that Skills USA now, formerly VICA, does for you, helps you into the workforce. So let's take it from there and let's jump into the workforce. Tell me about your first job or two.
The thing about those competitions is, they prepared you to test. And so as you practiced and took the tests in school, well, that prepared you for the tests out in the real world. Right. And so that was a good advantage and a good preparation. As far as my first couple of jobs, one thing that they offered at that time was a capstone project where you could CLEP out of a year of college. So I went on to Morehead State with my welding and got an associate's degree in welding, and then thought, well, that seemed to work out. So went on and got a bachelor's degree in welding and robotics. And when I graduated, the first place I worked was Osram, Sylvania, and working on the automated equipment. And worked there for about 3 years, and then I went to Toyota for a year. And then an opportunity came available here in Flemingsburg as a robotics engineer, programming the robots to weld. And so I came here to Flemingsburg. As time went on, I was able to advance in Toyo and spent 25 years there.
Well, tell us about that programming. I guess you got to be smarter than the machine, but it's not often that we get someone on the couch who's telling the machine how to weld. Normally you're running the controls. What's the similarities and the differences there?
It was honestly, it was like going to a hobby every day.
Okay.
Doing the robotics. It was like playing. I really enjoyed it and I actually loved it. And, the important thing was, though, is having those fundamental skills of welding and understanding what was happening in the puddle and understanding the base materials and what were you trying to accomplish and knowing how to get there. Because if you didn't have that foundation, the end result wouldn't be as good or what it needed to be.
Okay.
What we were welding was automotive seat frames, and literally people's lives depended on those welds, the integrity of the welds, and especially in a crash situation. So, but having that training and the fundamental skills of welding and what I learned in school was critical. And that same thing applies today, with what I'm doing now.
Right.
Having that, you can't take your shortcuts on your education and welding.
Right.
It's critical and it's important.
Now, did the robots ever make a mistake? And if they did, what did you do at that point?
Well, generally it wasn't the robots that made a mistake. It can be in the programming.
Okay.
Now, there are some, anything electronic can fail at
Right.
some point. But what you typically find is that a tip, the tip wears a little bit, or some fixturing wears or spatter can get in between some of the components. But generally, by and large, that robot is repeatable and exact.
Okay.
It's other factors that come into play when the welds go off or aren't, or they're not what you intended them to be.
Do you have any idea of how many 100 parts per week or something, a typical robot, how many seat frames could we produce?
I mean, you're talking thousands.
Wow.
Yeah, like, there could be 250 seat frames a shift and run 2 shifts, and then that would run 5-6 days a week. And then, a seat frame could have 50-60 welds on it per seat frame.
Wow.
And, when I started at Toyo, the majority of the welding was performed manually. And, but at this time, there are no manual weld processes.
But companies like Toyo, they still want to hire welders to be welding operators because, like you mentioned earlier, the human being is going to know and have the the knowledge of what it should look like and be able to program those units to run, right?
Yep, that's correct. It's a big advantage to have that welding background.
All right. So you spent 25 years at Toyo Seat USA.
Yep.
An awesome career, done some great things, and it sounds like you changed that company from manual into more and more automation.
Well, there was a lot of people involved with that. It's as I think that's part of the company's vision, and a lot of people were involved in going more towards automation. It was a neat process, neat thing to be involved with.
Yeah, good. So going forward, and some people call it retirement, some people call it the next phase in their life. So once you were sort of, closed the book on that portion of your life, you wasn't going to go sit down on the couch. What did you aspire to do next?
I've got 5 kids, and really enjoy spending time with them. And they were all going their separate ways, and 4 out of the 5 have taken a welding path, and they're doing a lot of traveling. And I'd kind of watch what they were doing, and they were really enjoying what they were doing. And I still welded kind of as for my own personal use, and I thought, I think I might enjoy that.
Yeah.
And get to travel some and be in different places. And then, with some of the hobbies I have, associating jobs in locations where I might want to be for my hobbies.
Okay.
And so that was kind of a plan. Now, there'll be times where I'm away from my wife, and I'll certainly miss her and that sort of thing. But, I'll be with my kids when I'm not at home with my wife. And, and also it affords some income at this stage of my life. And but one thing that I think is really neat about this is the flexibility of time.
Okay.
That is, I think, a big advantage because, when you're working, you work a lot of hours.
Right.
And, and you have days where you're really busy, and then some days where it's not as, you're not as busy, and you're, sometimes you're, kind of waiting for a weld or that kind of thing. But the flexibility of time is a really big advantage because you can work an outage and you can take some time off and pursue hobbies or other interests. So I really enjoy the flexibility.
Yeah. So you mentioned the hobby. So you take a job up north because you want to go snowboarding, or you take a job out in Arizona because you want to ride dirt bikes. What are some of the hobbies you got going on with this?
Well, I got a lot of hobbies, and so one of the things that I really like to do is riding dirt bikes. And so next summer I'll be out west. Me and one of my sons, Keegan, will be out hill climbing in Wyoming, and on he's gotten into the stretch dirt bike thing, and so we'll be riding stretch dirt bikes, hill climbing, and then also we like to snowboard, and so getting out west to take advantage of that will be a lot of fun.
All right. So whenever you're thinking about jobs, you've already mentioned several months out, you're already planning jobs in those areas.
Absolutely.
That far out?
Yeah. And so like down south, I want to, I've always did, jeeping and rock crawling around here. So down south, I'm looking at the different places where I want to rock crawl, and then jobs that I can get into there. And then after the job's over, then, go off-roading.
Okay.
And then what I'm doing to support this is, so I took a big fifth wheel trailer. The fifth wheel's been removed. It's an older trailer, and so then I put a slide-in truck camper on the front of it. I've got my dirt bikes in the middle, and then my Jeep on the back.
Okay.
And then so it gives me a place to live while I'm out on the job, and then all my hobby stuff goes with me as well.
All right. So you just got to travel, play, and work.
Right. So I'm combining the two.
Yeah. So now that you've back into the field, back into the combo welder type of outage business, were there any struggles along the way to get to that point where you could make those extra quality welds?
Well, I probably the biggest challenge I had was eyesight.
Okay.
52, eyes have changed. I've got bifocals. But honestly, what I found right now is I don't wear any glasses. I wear just non-prescription safety glasses when I'm welding. But I'll have my prescription glasses, there in a case. So when I'm done welding, I put those on, and I can see distance because I have trouble seeing far away. And then, I've got the bifocals. So finding what worked for me, and then because I tried. Now there are certain welds at certain distances that I'll use cheater lenses. But working through that process of being able to see, that was a challenge. Also, there's, physically, sometimes it can be demanding physically. Like this last job I was on, I was inside it was a crusher that, the cinders that come out of the boiler or furnace, it would grind them up, and so that's a pretty small space.
Right.
And the weld I was having to make, it was on stainless steel, and it was up over my head, but the roof was at a taper, and you could just barely get in there, and you're TIG welding kind of like this. So getting, my body's not used to that, so getting back into that, physically into that was a little bit of a challenge. Yeah. And then also, just thinking, can I do this? But, if you set your mind to it and you practice and you take necessary steps, it's doable. There are other people my age that can do it if they want.
Yeah, I think the eyesight for someone who is coming into welding from a different career path, whether it's been a truck driver or we've even had, students graduate our program that were doctors, and retired from that medical profession. One of those biggest challenges you mentioned is the eyesight. Of someone who is going to run the New York City Marathon, they're training for that for years and years, and they probably run several marathons. But welding is different. Your eyes are essentially a muscle. And if you haven't used them to focus on those small points and those up close welds, then it does take some adjustment, and different people, get through that different ways. So I'm glad you mentioned, prescription safety glasses and non-prescription reader safety glasses, and what we refer to as the cheater lens or the diopter. All those things can help individuals attain the level of vision they need to make those high quality welds.
And a person just can't say, well, I just can't see. If you're willing to work through it, you can find what works for you to be able to do that.
So moving forward, plans for the future? How long are you going to stay on the road, or are you just going to let the world just kind of steer?
I'm probably going to do it for about 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's my current plan. And but being out on these welding jobs, some things that I've noticed are, when your foreman is looking for someone that is willing to do whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, what I hired on to be was a welder, but they need someone who is, if there's someone that's got to turn wrenches and help the fitters make adjustments or demo stuff out, I found that that's a big advantage because you become pretty useful.
Yeah, they're looking for a hand.
They're looking for a person that's flexible. Mm-hmm. And not just, I'm just a welder and that's all I'm going to do. Right. Whatever is needed, if you just jump in and help with that, your opportunities in the future are a lot better, because those people are saying, hey, he's not a guy that is just waiting for a weld and everybody else to get it ready. Mm-hmm. He's willing to do whatever's necessary, and we want him on the next job.
Right.
And so, and that's happened where, I've got opportunities that are available because of that, looking at it that way. So that's something I'd encourage people that are looking to get into this, be flexible and willing to help out and do other things on the job other than just welding.
Yeah, I've always thought that, quality work turns into quality work, which turns into more quality work. Mm-hmm. And you hit the nail on the head there. If I do a good job here, mm-hmm. then that foreman's going to, offer me to go with him to the next crew, or you never know. The guy you're partnered with welding today may be the foreman on your next job.
That's right. And the thing about the welding community, it is a really small world. Yes. And I am not kidding. It is, every job that I've been on, there are people that know each other, and the reputation you make for yourself precedes you.
Right.
And you're either seen as a problem that, or a person that, hey, they got some baggage that comes with them, or that's a good guy, and man, whatever you need done, he'll jump in and do it.
Yeah.
And so it's a really small world, and you don't want to burn any bridges, and you just want to be a person that is very helpful, and also the basics. Be at work on time.
Yeah.
Be prepared to work. Of course, attendance. They need somebody there every day, not a person that's there missing once a week or every 2 weeks. They need, your foreman's got things that he has to accomplish in a certain amount of time, and you got to be a part of that.
Yeah, I know. If someone is not there, then 2 or 3 guys are going to have to step up, work harder, more hours to take their spot. And sometimes, especially when you get into an outage or a turnaround job, the hours are planned, and it's tough for guys to step in and fill in for some dude who just sort of lay out that day.
Yep, being available is very important. Also, another thing is, I'm not as fast as other people. At 52, I'm not as fast as my kids. And so how I think about that is, I'm focusing on my quality. Mm-hmm. And, I look at, first, safety. Safety is the most important thing on the job. Safety, then quality. And then as I focus on my quality and I get, my skills keep coming back and getting better, then my productivity will come in time. And, but, I'd rather have three welds that shot good than hurry and make 5 and 2 were bad.
Right. Yeah, you're not going to stay on 2 jobs like that.
That weld, if that weld shoots bad, they can't do anything with it. It's got to be it's got to be repaired or cut out, and so it's of no value. So focusing on the quality of what you're doing is extremely important.
Yeah, that's true. Because it's going to take a lot longer to cut out those two welds, and probably not going to be you. They're going to run you off and have to pay someone else.
Someone else.
So it's going to cost the company double. You know, I see it a lot with some younger welders. They want to just get off of something and move ahead and get to the next thing instead of focusing on getting good at instead of getting off of to move on.
And you know, now that you mentioned that, you know, where a student wants to, you know, get off a certain process on the next thing, just use the time that's there. Be patient, go through all the necessary processes, because there's, you know, as you're going through school and learning those basics, it all combines to a whole that make you a good welder. And you never know, you know, there's a certain process that you might not like, but you never know what job you're going to have where that's going to be required. So, you know, I'd like to encourage the new students, don't rush. Take your time, use the full time. Learn all the processes that you can, and you know, to give you the most skill and background, so that when you get out in the field, you're better prepared and able to handle the variety that comes at you. Because, you know, when you get on a job, I mean, you can be, you know, one day you might be TIG welding, you might be putting in a root with 60-10, and then, you know, filling out the rest of the way with 70-18, you know, and some people really like TIG, or, you know, they like stick, or there's certain processes that they want to tailor to, but learn it all. You know, it's a big advantage.
Yeah, you may hit one of these jobs where you're going to do some clad work, and you know, there's nothing super awesome about that, but it's part of the work that you need to do. And then other times, you may hire in as a welder and end up, you know, doing rigging work or different things that go along with that particular job.
Yeah, and you know, talking about that clad work, I got into a job where I was doing that, and it was about 5 days. And, you know, the total area was probably about 2 feet by 4 feet. And it was just bead after bead after bead. But the thing, what I thought about then is this gives me a great opportunity to really get better at running my passes, you know, and really refining my beads, and because you know where I've been out of it so long. So it's, yeah, you run into a variety of things on each job.
Okay. Well, Kevin, we sure appreciate you coming in with us today, and wish you all the best traveling and in your, quote, new continued career as you go forward, and we look forward to more discussions on life with Kevin Dale. So.
Well, you know, one of the things about getting back into this welding, it wouldn't have been possible without KWI and being able to go in and brush up on my skills. And, you know, because they have all the resources there, all the equipment. They've got the people that are knowledgeable, that have been out in the field, know what, you know, what type of things you need to train on and to specialize to be successful. And honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do this if it hadn't have been for that, you know, for that resource being here in the community and being able to take advantage of that. So I greatly appreciate being able to go to KWI and get brushed up.
We appreciate you. Yeah, that custom program that we have is not for someone directly out of high school, and there's been a few others like yourself have came through that custom program, take the knowledge that they have an evaluation, and then continue on, and we sit down and so what's the end result? What do we want? And we work toward that, whether it's you know, 40 hours or 400 hours. We try to work toward, as a professional who's already a welder, try to work toward your next goal. So we appreciate you giving us a shout out for that.
Okay, well, it's been good.
All right. Well, again, thanks for coming in, and thanks for joining us. And you've been watching KWI on the Couch.